Download now.
A very good morning right here on News 9 Live. Over the next 20-25 minutes, all the stories from around the world when it comes to businesses, economy, policy, and everything that is likely to burn a hole or stitch one in your pocket. You're watching World Business Report. All right, you're watching World Business Report right here on News 9 Live. From the US dollar's drop to China's faltering economy, these are the stories to watch in business and finance starting this week.
From the US dollar's drop to China's faltering economy, these are the stories to watch in business and finance. The dollar is heading for its weakest monthly performance for a year. The prospect of a rapid flip to rate cuts by the Fed next year has driven investors into beaten-down treasuries, pushing yields down and boosting stocks at the expense of the dollar. Seasonally, December is the worst month for the dollar, but it tends to recover in January. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index due on Thursday is expected to show no change in October from the prior month, according to a Reuters poll. A Consumer Confidence Index report is due on Tuesday. The October reading showed a third straight monthly decline. COP28 gets underway in Dubai on Friday, with no consensus likely and pessimism around the key 1.5-degree warming target. The best that can be hoped for might be more money and focus from the big multilateral institutions like the World Bank, and deals on uncontroversial areas like tripling global renewable energy capacity. China's top economic advisor plans to recommend a 5% growth target for a second year, Reuters reported exclusively on November 22nd. They say more fiscal stimulus is needed to get there, but support measures have fallen short so far. China releases official manufacturing PMI data on Thursday, which last month showed an unexpected contraction, killing momentum for an economic recovery.
All right, an action-packed week ahead with data coming from the US, China's economy, as well as COP28. Well, it's still Sunday night in the US when we are live with this show, but amidst a holiday-shortened trading session, the closing bell on Friday echoed over US stocks, revealing minimal movements in the US markets. With tepid volumes and cautious sentiment, investors kept a watchful eye on the seasonal shopping kickoff, seeking clues about consumer resilience. Take a look.
U.S. stocks ended little changed on Friday in shortened trading as investors watched the start of the holiday shopping season for signs of consumer resiliency. The Dow gained 0.3%, the S&P 500 ticked up fractionally, and the Nasdaq shed 0.1%, with all three indexes notching their fourth straight week of gains. The day after Thanksgiving, retailers were hoping to attract millions of shoppers with steep Black Friday discounts, though many have already warned of a slower than usual holiday season. Sean O'Hara is president of Pacer ETF's distributors.
I would be more interested not in what total sales were, because, inflation is a big part of increasing sales revenue, right? Prices go up. And so from a dollar basis, you might have greater sales. But I'd be interested more in digging into the numbers and looking at unit sales and things of that nature.
In company news, shares of Nvidia dipped about 2% after Reuters reported a delay in the launch of the company's China-focused AI chip designed to comply with U.S. export rules. Shares of iRobot surged 39% after a report that Amazon is set to win antitrust approval from the EU for its $1.4 billion acquisition of the robot vacuum maker. And shares of Vista Outdoor advanced roughly 4% after Czech gunmaker Colt CZ Group's cash and stock merger offer worth nearly $1.7 billion. Next week, investors will be closely watching the Commerce Department's second estimate on third-quarter GDP, as well as its Personal Consumption Expenditures, or PCE, report, which will provide further clues on the impact of the Federal Reserve's rate hikes.
All right, of course. Well, it was the Black Friday weekend, but Black Friday footfalls or foot traffic seemed unusually calm this year, signaling a departure from the bustling scenes of past years amidst, of course, like the previous story mentioned, soaring inflation and a surge in online sales. Take a look.
This year's Black Friday appeared somewhat subdued compared to years past as shoppers sauntered into U.S. department stores after the Thanksgiving holiday. With many consumers squeezed by persistent inflation and high interest rates, U.S. holiday spending is expected to rise at the slowest pace in 5 years. Brokerage firm TD Cowen lowered its U.S. holiday spending estimate, saying it would grow by just 2 to 3% versus its previous estimate of 4 to 5%, as it forecast flat Black Friday traffic. But that could be because shoppers have already taken advantage of October and November deals, says Eric Matisoff, an analytics and data science expert at Adobe.
So retailers and consumers already are having a great holiday season. So yesterday, consumers purchased more than they've ever purchased before. We saw $5.6 billion of purchases and products yesterday bought, and then that's a 5.5% increase from year over year last year.
This couple from London, expecting the usual mad rush, was surprised to find they were first in line at Macy's in New York.
We got up at 4 to get here for 5 because we knew it opened at 6, and there's literally no one here. I'm really shocked. But happy that we're first.
The rise of online shopping has also reduced the importance of Black Friday as a single-day event. Despite warnings from some retailers of a wary consumer, a record 130.7 million Americans were expected to shop in stores and online on Black Friday this year, according to estimates from the National Retail Federation.
All right, Black Friday everywhere. But experts predict that holiday shopping in the US might offer the best bargains seen in years, promising a wallet-friendly season for consumers. Take a look. Prices there fluctuating, some back to 2018-2019 levels, and categories like smart TVs even below that, but some categories are seeing, of course, an upward movement in prices thanks to supply chain disruptions. But there's a disruption of another kind in Europe. Amazon's Black Friday experiences disruption as workers across Europe stage strikes, impacting, of course, one of the busiest shopping days. Take a look.
European Amazon workers went on strike on one of the busiest shopping days of the year, Friday. They protested against the firm's working practices. It's part of a campaign called Make Amazon Pay, led by the UNI Global Union. It said strikes and protests would take place in more than 30 countries from Black Friday through to Monday. On Black Friday, many retailers slashed prices to boost sales. In Coventry, England, trade union GMB said more than 1,000 workers walked out of Amazon's warehouse in a long-running dispute over pay. Stuart Richard is a trade union organiser.
In the protest here, we've got people joining us from Germany, from the US, from Italy. There are also Spanish workers that are out on strike today. This is now a global wake-up call for Amazon. They can't keep ignoring the concerns of these workers and the workers in warehouses right across the world.
The striking workers demand a pay rise to £15 or $18.69 an hour. An Amazon UK spokesperson said minimum starting pay would rise up between £12.30 to £13 an hour, depending on location, from April next year. The company also said the strike would not cause disruption. In Germany, Verdi trade union said hundreds of workers went on strike at warehouses, while Spain and Italy saw further industrial action. France also saw demonstrations. Amazon is popular in Europe, with its app having 146 million active users on the continent in October.
Well, disruptions there over the weekend, starting Friday for Amazon in all of Europe. But in a whirlwind of figures, before we move any further, this week's statistics dance between new entries, exits and surprising fluctuations. What's it presenting? A dynamic snapshot of economic indicators. Take a look.
From a crazy few days for Sam Altman to a guilty plea by the Binance boss, this is the week in numbers. About 5 days is how long Sam Altman was out in the cold. He was ousted as boss of ChatGPT maker OpenAI, with the board citing communication failures. But his departure horrified investors, staff and major backer Microsoft, and within days Altman was back. Understanding AI founder Chris Winfield says it shows who's really in charge.
Microsoft they're holding all the keys. They are the dominant player in AI by far.
$956 million is how much money investors pulled out of crypto exchange Binance in just 24 hours. That was after boss Changpeng Zhao pleaded guilty to settle a US probe into illicit finances. It wasn't clear how much, if any, prison time he would serve following the deal. $20 billion is now Nvidia's forecast for revenue over the current quarter. That beat analyst estimates yet again. But the AI chip leader warns that US controls on exports to China would cost it a lot of sales in the coming months. Over 10,000 is how many outlets McDonald's aims to have in China by 2028, close to double the current number. This week, the burger chain said it was buying back a big stake in its operations there, as it bets on rapid growth ahead. And up to $7.9 billion is the total claim against Sony in a London lawsuit. The mass action case claims the Japanese giant abused its dominant position to overcharge game developers, with consumers then paying the price. Sony says the suit is flawed from the start, but failed in a bid to get it thrown out.
Well, that was the week of last week in numbers. And talking about numbers, Nissan's ambitious $1.4 billion investment to manufacture new EVs in the UK signals a significant stride towards electric vehicle innovation as well as production. Take a look.
Nissan is doubling down on the UK. On Friday, the Japanese automaker said it would invest $1.4 billion to build new electric vehicles at its plant in Sunderland, Northern England. It made its electric Leaf model there for years and will continue to do so. But the new plan will also see production of electric versions of its popular Qashqai and Duke crossovers. That's part of the company's move to offer only EVs in Europe by 2030. Nissan Chief Executive Makoto Uchida.
By 2030, we expect all our passenger car sales in Europe to be EV. With today's announcement, we are making that vision happen.
The new project is expected to receive government support, but Nissan didn't provide any figures. The deal also fires the starting gun on UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Global Investment Summit, which is due to take place next week. He'll host the Nissan chief as part of that event.
So it's a huge vote of confidence in the UK and in our automotive industry, and it's great in advance of the Global Investment Summit.
The company's new investment supports some 7,000 workers in Sunderland and many more in the supply chain. It also cements the country's role as a key hub for the company. Back in 2021, Nissan's decision to invest in battery production there was seen as a key show of confidence at a time when many big firms were concerned about the fallout from Brexit. The new deal also comes a few months after India's Tata Motors said it would invest billions in the UK to build batteries for its Jaguar Land Rover brands.
All right, sticking to the European zone, Novo, the pharmaceutical company, has selected France as a platform to bolster its weight loss drug aspirations, aiming for a substantial boost in the competitive pharma market. Take a look.
Novo Nordisk is racing to ramp up output of its in-demand weight loss drugs. The Danish firm on Thursday unveiled new investment in production capacity in Chartres, near Paris. French President Emmanuel Macron was on hand to inspect the facility. His office says he persuaded the firm to invest there at his Choose France summit earlier in the year. The company didn't comment on the claim, but it's a boost for the French leader, who has seen a global slowdown undo progress on cutting joblessness.
Where we had been destroying industrial jobs for over 12 years, we have now recreated several 100,000. Where we had destroyed 600 factories net over the previous 10 years, we have recreated 300 net over the last 5 years.
Novo is investing about $2.3 billion at the French site. That will significantly boost production capacity for Wegovy and Ozempic, its hot obesity and diabetes treatments. The company has had to ration supplies in the EU, such is the demand. Germany is considering banning exports of Ozempic, with other countries also eyeing curbs. The popularity of the drugs has made Novo Europe's most valuable firm, overtaking luxury giant LVMH. It's already announced a $6 billion investment in its native Denmark in a bid to boost output. US rival Eli Lilly is also ramping up production of its competing products.
All right, the maker of Ozempic, they're Novo, making higher than expected inroads into France. But moving to Asia, Japan's inflation uptick sparks speculation about potential interest rate hikes, adding fuel to the ongoing economic debate in Japan.
Inflation may finally be making a return in Japan. Data out Friday showed price rises picking up again in October after a dip the month before. Core inflation rose to 2.9% on the year, slightly below economist forecasts. The numbers ramp up pressure for a change of course at the Bank of Japan. Inflation has now hovered above its 2% target for 19 straight months. But the central bank has insisted that's because of higher global commodity prices and the weaker yen, not because of stronger domestic demand and rising wages. Analysts say that argument is getting harder to sustain. One told Reuters that he now expected the BOJ to end negative interest rates as soon as April. That would be after the outcome of spring wage talks at big firms. So far, Bank Governor Kazuo Ueda has brushed aside all such talk.
こうした物価の先行きをめぐっては、企業の価格設定や賃金引き上げの影響を含め、
He says he wants to see evidence of sustained wage growth before he believes that price rises are here to stay. For many years, Japan has been battling deflation, not rising prices. Data shows average wages have hardly risen for 30 years. But constraints caused by the global health crisis and other factors have started to shift the calculation, with firms increasingly passing on higher costs to consumers.
Well, Japan, they're battling its own challenges of deflation, despite inflation now for the last 19 months hovering above the 2% expected rate, which incidentally is good news for Japan. Staying with Asia, sources have told Reuters that Nvidia's postponement of new AI chip designed for the Chinese market, indicating potential shift in the tech strategies amid regulatory challenges as well as the ongoing AI battle between US and China. Take a look.
China must wait longer for a new AI chip made by Nvidia. Two sources told Reuters that was the message the US chipmaker delivered to customers in the country. The semiconductor, known as the H20, is designed to comply with US export rules and is the most powerful of three chips Nvidia has developed specifically for China. The firm was expected to launch its new products as early as this month, but sources say that's now pushed back to the first quarter of next year. They were told the H20 was delayed due to issues server manufacturers were having in integrating it. Nvidia plans 2 other chips to comply with new US export rules, the L20 and L2. The sources said the L20 faced no delays, but were unable to share information on the L2. Now the delays mean Nvidia could struggle to preserve market share against local rivals like Huawei. The US firm has bet on the chips to keep its market share in China. Nvidia was banned from shipping products including advanced AI chips by Washington's strict export rules. Those curbs give rivals like Huawei a chance to win orders that might otherwise have gone to Nvidia. Earlier this month, Reuters reported Chinese internet giant Baidu placed a big order for Huawei AI chips this year.
Alright, sticking with China and US companies and their interest, if not their battles with the Chinese counterparts, Apple has witnessed a decline in smartphone sales during China's Singles Day. What is it reflecting? Well, at one level, it's reflecting a shift in consumer behavior in one of the largest crucial markets for Apple. And in another, perhaps we're talking about competition and preference of Chinese smartphones. Take a look.
Sales of Apple smartphones dropped during China's recent Singles Day shopping extravaganza. Data from Counterpoint Research showed sales down 4% on the year during the event. The phone maker also fell behind Chinese rivals Huawei and Xiaomi, according to data. Huawei sales were up 66% year-on-year, while Xiaomi saw a 28% rise. The price for Apple's latest iPhone 15 model starts at $832, higher than Huawei's Mate 60 smartphone at $763. Xiaomi's latest Mi 14 smartphone is priced at $555. Huawei and Apple did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Analysts believe the Chinese smartphone market is due a rebound after 10 consecutive quarters of falling shipments. Research firm IDC said it expects sales to grow year-on-year in the fourth quarter. Apple released its iPhone 15 series in late September, roughly a month after Huawei launched the Mate 60 smartphone line. Huawei's product, powered by its independently developed chip, has gained patriotic support in China. Fans argue it shows Huawei has overcome years of export controls by the US that initially hurt its smartphone business. Counterpoint analysts also blamed Apple's sluggish performance on supply chain issues that have constrained the availability of its new iPhone 15 models.
Alright, moving away from China, the vinyl maker, his master's voice, HMV, makes a nostalgic return to Oxford Street in London after a century of being in business. What is this marking? Of course, a symbolic comeback in the ever-evolving retail landscape. Take a look.
Yeah, I think you need to have a great experience. You have to have a reason for people to come out to your store. For us, it's a great selection. It's browsing. Obviously, we've got our live and local, so we've got a stage here where our bands can come and play. But I think ultimately, if you can't make it a fun shopping experience, then no one's going to come to your stores. When you really look at how iconic this store really is, I would say it's arguably the most famous record shop in the world. Vinyl, interestingly enough, has pulled in a lot of a younger demographic coming in, and as they come here and buy, they've been looking at some of the band merch and things like that, so we're getting a new customer.
right, Phil, that's all we have on this show, but news continues right here on News 9 Live, and I'll see you again tomorrow on World Business Report. Thanks for watching.
He thought he could outlast us. And 1 year later, the evidence is right here in this room.
Who will blink first?
So far from preventing the expansion of NATO, Russian actions have actually resulted in the expansion of NATO.
It's a mess for Russia and it's a mess for the Western world, for NATO and the United States.
Putin is a dictator, and if he loses, that means the end of his regime, and probably of him personally. So he has to keep going.
Year 2, no end in sight. Streaming now.
News 9 big coverage of 5 assembly polls. Mandate 2023.
ChatGPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew. But does a newsroom really need them today?
All of us have to think about unique and distinctive value addition that cannot be automated or repeated or replaced by a machine.
ChatGPT may kill many companies.
A human has to be in the loop with an ability to control this.
Dark side of the boom. Streaming now.
With all this gear, you must be wondering if I'm climbing a mountain. Well, let me give you a wider look of this place. This is Asia's largest mountain of shame.
A mountain of waste, almost the height of the Qutub Minar.
When you enter capital cities of some of the biggest countries in the world, you don't have 3 garbage mountains waiting to welcome you, depending on whichever side of the city you enter from.
The thing is that a lot of times we talk about landfills only when there's a fire at the landfill. You need to understand that a landfill is at fire almost throughout the year. It's only when the firefighters are not able to douse the fire is when it actually catches the nation's attention, the city's attention, or media attention.
The towering landfills worsen one of Delhi's biggest problems: pollution.
यहाँ पर आप रात को आओ, दिन में आओ, आप 1 घंटे बैठ नहीं सकते बाहर। इतनी धूल, प्रदूषण, महक, आप खाना भी नहीं खा सकते बाहर बैठ के।
Life around the landfill is a curse.
हमारे घर में जो बड़े हैं, उन्हें अस्थमा के वो पेशेंट है। आए दिन उनको नेबुलाइजर लगाना पड़ता है।
डॉक्टर ने भी मुझे ये चीज बोला कि यहाँ का एरिया छोड़ के कहीं और चाहिए।
Delhi's garbage mountains are now a fetid symbol of the national capital's trash problem. The question is, who is to be blamed? Watch Delhi's Garbage Mountains. Streaming on News 9 Plus for the Genflix. ChatGPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew. But does a newsroom really need them today?
all of us have to think about unique and distinctive value addition that cannot be automated or repeated or replaced by a machine.
ChatGPT may kill many companies.
A human has to be in the loop with an ability to control this.
Dark Side of the Boom. Streaming now.
Hamas attacks Israel. Israel Defense Forces strike back at Hamas. As the war unfolds, watch the comprehensive coverage of the Israel war only on News 9+.